What's going on, everyone? Welcome here to the Pizza Buffet, live on the Forward Progress YouTube channel. It's part of the Hammer Betting Network, and it is powered by Pinnacle Sportsbook. I'm Rob Pizzola, here with you for the next hour, breaking down today's NFL sides and totals. Got to be honest with everyone. I'm running on fumes this morning. No sleep. Very little sleep. Stayed up to watch the F1 in Vegas, which I thought was arguably the race of the year. Didn't know what to expect going in, but super great track, lots of action, lots of passing. Fantastic race altogether. Would have loved to see Charles Leclerc win, but overall, for the amount of complaints about the event in Vegas altogether, that was great. So by the time that wrapped up at 3, had a little bit of an adrenaline rush, couldn't get to bed, woke up early this morning, 8 a.m. to watch the Leafs in Sweden. Willie Nylander, OT winner. It's been a very fun night of sports. But with that comes a little bit lack of sleep. Trying to get as much info as I can this morning. Struggling with some of it. So as always, to my fellow nails who are watching the stream right now, if you do see any piece of breaking news, I'm going to try to pay attention to this stream as much as possible. Just drop it in the comments. I do see everything in real time, and we'll get to a lot of it over the course of the broadcast. So again, any breaking injuries, whatever, post it in the comments. And if you're not subscribed to Forward Progress and want to get in on the comments, make sure you hit that sub button below. Now, before we get into it, I'll let it fill out a little bit here. I feel like there's an onus for me to do this every single week. Some people used to laugh at me when I used to talk about the Dallas Cowboys games. And I would always say, I'm a Cowboys fan. I can bet on them. I can bet against them. It became this whole thing. This was like 4 or 5 years ago. For me, the thing I'm pivoting to talking about every single week is the fact that I do not have an edge at this time betting the NFL. I hate to be disrespectful and slap you across the face, but it's very unlikely that you have an edge betting the NFL at this time. Sure, you might be able to pick off some off-market prices. You might be able to play some props this morning that haven't moved far enough, whatever. But the reality is, it is hard to win betting the NFL on Sundays. There's a reason that there are sports books, including our show sponsor Pinnacle, that are taking 6-figure bets on NFL right now. And it's because they're very confident in their numbers. So do what you can to bet earlier in the week. That includes watching Forward Progress tonight at 8 p.m. Eastern Time, where we will look at the openers for next week. Today, however, is maybe the perfect storm. I say this each Sunday as well, but usually the plays I'm going to give out on Sundays are the ones where the market has either heavily opposed me, meaning there's a lot of resistance, another sharp bettor out there that's completely disagrees with me, or I don't think the market has moved far enough. Those are typically the candidates for plays on Sunday. Well, this week, I personally had very little volume to begin with in the first place. Then on top of that, I've gotten good closing line value on the bets that I have placed, which means the market's moved with me, taking a lot of edges away. Or there are injury situations that have forced me off of certain edges. I'll talk about all this, and I'll go game by game, as I usually do. But there is a legitimate chance that I go through today's stream, as I look at my board right now, without locking in a single play. And if you want to see you later, Rob, I don't want to watch a full stream without you locking in a play, that's fine. I get it. We're in a picks-driven business. I'm still going to give a detailed breakdown of every game. But the point of this pizza buffet on Sunday mornings is to give out plays that I would personally play myself. And I'm not going to be dishonest for the sake of content and for the sake of viewers. So I will break down every single game. I will answer questions. There might be some line moves here this morning that may change things for me. But overall, I think that this market, as it's settled, is very interesting, and there are not too many big edges to be had. A last reminder, if you are betting the NFL, please play responsibly. Cannot preach it enough. Nothing worse than going to bed on a Sunday night miserable because you put too much in play on an NFL Sunday. We can all have some fun. It's all for entertainment purposes. We all want to win, obviously. But don't bet what you cannot afford to lose. As a general reminder, I'm often going to preach line shopping here on Forward Progress. It's one of the most critical aspects to sports betting. I would never consider betting without Pinnacle being one of my sportsbook accounts. As I break down each game, rotation number order, I bring up the odds on screen, courtesy of betstamp, which you're often going to find is Pinnacle has the best price in market on game, side, total, whatever. Bet smart, bet Pinnacle, your trusted sportsbook for the past 25 years. If you do want to sign up to Pinnacle in Canada, use code HAMMER, as it does help support the show. You must be 19 plus, licensed in Ontario, not available in the US. And of course, as I said earlier, please play responsibly. Before we get into it, just really quickly, I promise I'm almost done with this diatribe before we get into it. Take 2 seconds, smash the like button down below. 2 seconds. Just helps people find this content in real time. YouTube loves the likes. They elevate it on other people's streams that are football fans, and maybe I can get some new viewers out of the situation. So please take 2 seconds, smash that like button down below. And of course, there's also this share button on YouTube. If you want to put it out there to your friends, in your friends groups, on your Twitter, your Instagram, whatever the hell you want to do, help me get the content out there. More people watch, it's way easier for me to do this going forwards. I've always been transparent about that. Obviously, nobody wants to produce content that's nobody's watching. So please do that. All right, let's get into it. Once again, I will utilize betstamp for the majority of this stream as well. Very easy way to improve as a sports bettor. Use multiple sports books. Always get the best odds. Use Pinnacle. Use some other books. But I recommend using an odds comparison tool like betstamp as well. Comparing odds across every sports book. Games, player props, futures. Save time, save money. Check out betstamp. Download the app today. All right. The closest I was probably to locking in a play was Pittsburgh-Cleveland here in the early going. So looking at the market now, we've seen a little bit of money on Cleveland this morning. Money line has gone out from what was about the minus 115 range when I woke up today 3 hours ago to minus 130. Even this juice -1 at Pinnacle is basically like a 2.5 number. So game day steam towards the Browns. A little bit of steam in the last day or so on the over in this game as well. For those of you who watch the Wednesday Best Bets show here on Forward Progress, myself, Hitman, Eager, Suma, I gave the Cleveland Browns money line as my best bet. You might remember what I gave the cutoff there, but I gave the cutoff as minus 123 because I make the game minus 128. And that's where I stand right now. Pat Freiermuth coming back at tight end for Pittsburgh, but they're still dealing with a bunch of injuries on defense, most notably Minkah Fitzpatrick, but also Quan Alexander, Cole Holcomb, both on IR right now. So that leaves a void in their linebacking core. Montravius Adams out as well, their nose tackle. So not big injuries, but compounding, I would say. Cleveland's right tackle, DeJuan Jones, he was listed as questionable. He proclaimed himself good to go. So I think that's going to be fine there. Now, talk about the Steelers. 6-3, the only team in NFL history with a winning record this late in the season that's been outgained in every game. People are like, how do they do it? How does Mike Tomlin do it? Is it the voodoo? Is it this? Is it that? Is it consistently repeatable? Now, there are some things that teams do that are actually repeatable with turnovers. I'm not saying that all of a sudden all these turnovers that Pittsburgh's defense is creating are going to go away forever. However, there is a lot of luck involved in this. And when you look at Pittsburgh's opponents' yards per play and their EPA at different points in the field, there's got to be very likely, again, probabilistically speaking, some sort of regression that happens. When Pittsburgh's opponents are on their own side of the field, they average 7.2 yards per play, 0.11 EPA. Those are bottom four numbers for the Steelers defense on the opponent's side of the field. But then all of a sudden we get in the red zone and the Steelers hold opponents to 2 yards per play. They're second best in EPA. So it's a bend but don't break defense. I don't like those styles of defense going forwards. I would rather the team that performs consistently across different aspects of the field. DTR starting for the Browns. I have no idea what DTR is going to be. There's very mixed opinions on DTR. Talked to Barry Horse on the watch along on Monday Night Football. He thinks DTR is horrible, stinks. It's very possible. There's a wide range of outcomes. But we already know who PJ Walker is. Terrible. EPA-wise, success, any metric you want to look at, PJ Walker's been terrible. They think DTR gives them a better chance to win than PJ Walker. But let's say for sake of purposes, I didn't and don't know what DTR is, which I don't. You got to think probabilistically. If I use PJ Walker for Cleveland, I'm still close to a Cleveland edge in this game. So the team thinks DTR is better. The likelihood that he is somewhat probable, above 50%, I would say. DTR's first start against the Ravens. Found out the night before that he was starting. Now, there was always the possibility that he was going to, but it was a game plan catered to Deshaun Watson that he ended up having to execute against a very good defense. He struggled. I think that there's at least some likelihood that he doesn't look that terrible this time around. But for me, the big thing here is the best unit of any of these teams is the Cleveland defense. And if you look at what this Cleveland defense has done at home this season, they faced Cincinnati, they faced Tennessee, they faced San Fran, they faced Arizona. In only one of those games, did they give up a success rate that was more than 28%. This is absurdly good defense. Absurdly good defense. Those 4 home games, the Niners had the best success rate at 35%. Absurdly good. Cleveland plays a ton of man. The most man coverages in the entire league. Where does Kenny Pickett rank against man? 29th in EPA. Not very good. Cleveland also mixes in some cover 1, mixture of man and zone. Pickett, dead last in the league against cover 1. I think there's a little bit too much fixation on the DTR component and how he's going to score on the Steelers. When we look at the Steelers' defense the last couple weeks, they made Jordan Love look like a real quarterback last week. And if we go back to the Will Levis game, they made Will Levis look a lot better than he looked against the Bucs a week later. Cleveland or nothing, in my opinion. I've made my case for the Browns. Obviously, again, this is not about what I bet earlier in the week, but if you did watch the Wednesday broadcast, you know that I'm going to be interested in the Browns today. I think we've gotten to the point where, okay, market has now got it bedded into place. But that's where I am with this particular game. All right, let's move it on here. Arizona and Houston. Interesting market movement on this one all week. All the early money in the week goes towards Arizona. Got it bet down to like 4.5 at one point. Midweek, we get buyback on Houston, which often happens almost every week. Houston has some sort of sharp interest. I think they're a team that, there's a lot of things to like about them. Depending on how quickly you came off your priors earlier this year, you might have really liked Houston at some point. Got out to 6 at some spots. Now we're settled in 5.5 everywhere. Same thing with the total here. Immediately bet down. The look-ahead total in this game was much, much lower than this. But obviously, Kyler Murray looked good last week. You have CJ Stroud just throwing on everybody. Total opened really high and got bet down. In this range, I'm kind of just fine with where we are all around. Arizona's dealing with some injuries on the left side of their O-line. DJ Humphries missed last week's game, as did their left guard, Tristan Colon. Both have questionable tags today. I'm not sure if either is going to play. You also have their number 2 receiver, Michael Wilson, questionable. I'm almost certain he's not going to play today. Their number 4, Zach Pascal, is out. So Arizona's wide receiving core looks like Marquise Brown, Rondale Moore, Greg Dortch, practice squad players, basically. I'd be much more interested in Arizona at full health, obviously. Houston dealing with a bunch of injuries at every level. You can add Noah Brown to that list. Denzel Perryman suspended now. We really have to watch Will Anderson. I have not gotten an update on Will Anderson, but he's been downgraded this weekend with a knee injury. And I think very highly of him, but also I don't think very highly of the Texans defense. They've played the 4th easiest schedule of opponents in terms of success rate, the 6th easiest in terms of EPA, and they still have not performed well. You take away solid defensive linemen from the equation for them, and I'm just not all that interested in laying this type of number, having to win by margin with this type of defense. The offense, completely different story. I love CJ Stroud. It's, you'll look at the CJ Stroud success rates and you'll be like, kind of like league average across the board success rate wise. He throws downfield a lot. He attacks defenses a lot. And this is what makes this very interesting for me from a stylistic matchup. Arizona plays a lot of quarters coverage. They play a lot of don't give up the big play. And that's worked for them this season. They're not giving up explosive plays. They're top 10 in terms of not giving up explosive plays. Can Stroud generate those explosive plays on Arizona when this defense is trying to take them away? That'll be interesting to see. If we look at CJ Stroud against this quarter's defense this year, 0.26 EPA per play, which I just pulled up now, that's 3rd. So he has been able to generate big plays against this defense. But overall, honestly, I know that there's been a lot of opposition on this game, people who like both sides. I think the number is just fine and has kind of hung around in this fine range. My early instinct on Sunday night last week was it's too high, but it's just kind of like in this dead zone right now, in my opinion. Insight play in the first half. Team total, Houston over 13.5, which I mentioned on Forward Progress this week. All right, let's keep it moving here. Game number 3. Again, if you're late to the party, I'm not here to force picks today. I'm here to talk about the games, what I see, break them down as best as I can. If we got some plays, that'll be beautiful. If not, it is what it is. Packers and Chargers. It's kind of hung around 3 all week. Early money brought the Chargers up to -3, -115-ish. Later money in the week, more towards the Packers. Total's been in this 44 range, which is a key number all week. Not a lot of line movement on this game. I posted a video earlier this week of my tortoise, Tortellini, who's in my office on the left right here, causing a ruckus right now. Don't know what he's doing. He's making a lot of noise. But in that video, I took a screenshot of my computer screen, which is head on right here, slowly shifted to the left, and I left a couple of edges that were up on the screen at the time. And I've had a lot of people DM me and ask me about those. One of them was the under in this game. And I'll talk through it. I did not play the under in this game. It's very tough to know what to make of this game with the injuries on both sides. You can add Jalen Guyton to the list of Chargers receivers that are going to be out alongside Mike Williams and Josh Palmer, who's on IR. Keenan Allen expected to go with no restrictions. So the wide receiving core is going to look like Keenan Allen, rookie Quentin Johnson, and then some combo of Darius Davis, Semi Fehoko, practice squad receivers. Ordinarily, I love betting against teams with cluster receiver injuries. My personal opinion, which may not be echoed by other people, is that these situations are often undervalued in market. But the Green Bay injury report is also a mess. We're trying to get more clarity on it. Jair Alexander went 2 limited practices. Expectation is that he's going to play, is the last thing that I have seen. But we also have Rashawn Gary, who hurt his shoulder in practice. Don't know if he's in or out. Quay Walker still dealing with the groin injury. These are all key players on this defense. Remember, Rudy Ford is already out. Rasul Douglas got traded. Who's on IR? Eric Stokes, Darnell Savage. If we get like a Green Bay fully healthy defense, I like the under in this game. Possibly the Packers as well, but more so the under. This is a defense that plays a lot of cover 3. Almost 50% of their defensive snaps are cover 3. It's the third highest rate in the entire league. Justin Herbert this year against cover 3, negative EPA per play, 18th in overall EPA, 23rd in overall success rate, the worst splits against any type of defense. Without receivers now, key receivers, thin receiving core. I get that it's Herbert against Love. Herbert's way better. I get all that stuff, but it's just really tough. Suma made a case for the Chargers on Forward Progress midweek. I get all that. The big thing for me, and the key here being Rashawn Gary, is that early in the season when the Packers were playing well, they were generating a lot of pressure. It's a very small sample, but if you go back to the first 3 weeks of the season, they were pressuring opposing quarterbacks at a 45% rate, which is very high. That was the second highest rate in the NFL through 3 weeks of the season. Since then, they're 23rd. Justin Herbert, if he is kept clean, will beat defenses. He's been very good from a clean pocket. This is why Rashawn Gary is very important in this game. So, what number on the under do you need? 44 is fine. But we need fully healthy Green Bay defense. Fully healthy. And even then, this is just going to marginally put this into range for me. Eckler going to run tons. Honestly, I see this as another case for the under. I would employ Eckler very heavily, both in the passing game and the rushing game today as well. In terms of the Chargers defense, I know a lot of people might be concerned, but when they have taken a step down in class, they have fared well. Jets defense, Jets offense, Bears offense in recent weeks. It's not like they've been a complete dumpster. It's when they face a good offense that they are a complete dumpster. Keep it moving. Giants and Commanders. This was as high as 10 at the open, juice 10s towards the Giants. Been bet down into like this dead zone. Washington, very popular teaser option in this range. Hard to blame you if you want to do that. You tease through 7, you tease through 3. Total in the game is low at 39, although it was like 37 and a half yesterday. So some money in the last day on the over in this game. I was close to making the Giants my best bet on Forward Progress Wednesday Best Bets show. And that line like steamed while I was on air, and I couldn't make it a best bet because it got out of my range. And now we're just kind of sitting in this dead range where, you know, I show a little bit of value on the Giants, but not enough to play it in the game. The Giants are still a mess on the O-line, but it does look like Andrew Thomas is going to play today. He had 3 limited practices with his knee injury. Kind of an important player. So inarguably a very impactful player. The secondary situation has improved a lot as the week has gone on. Adoree Jackson's still out with the concussion, but Deonte Banks, Cordell Flott no longer have injury designations. Washington, on the other hand, pretty healthy, aside from James Smith-Williams missing on the D-line. I ordinarily would not even mention James Smith-Williams. Definitely not a household name. But remember, the Commanders' defensive line is thin after their trade deadline. They'll be without someone that they just thrust into a starter's role. Minorly impactful, but needs to be mentioned. Obviously, people, I know how bad the Giants are. I know how terrible New York is. Washington is showing signs of improvement. Sam Howell's playing better. They have adjusted this offense, credit to Eric Bieniemy, to get the ball out of his hands more quickly. It's a lot of 3-step drops. They led 2 comeback drives against Seattle last week in the fourth quarter. And if you just look at the last 3 games, when we've seen adjustments to this offense, Sam Howell is like league average in success rate, slightly above average in EPA. The Giants play a lot of man, second highest rate in the league. Howell's been good against man this year and has receivers that can get open against man. So I get the optimism about Washington. However, we just get to a point where it's like, this is a lot. It's a lot. I know Tommy DeVito's terrible. I get it. He did nothing outside of garbage time against Dallas last week, but he was competent in garbage time. I'm not ready to draw this large of a distinction between these two teams just yet. That's it. Am I running to back the Giants? No, I'm not. But it's Giants or nothing for me at this number. So I see stuff like this, the Giants quit. It kind of makes me more optimistic about the Giants. I mean, everyone's entitled to their opinion, and certainly, James, you're entitled to yours as well. However, we're in week 11. We have coaches coaching for jobs. We have players playing for jobs. This is a divisional matchup. I think we'll learn a lot from today's game, honestly, one way or another. Like if the Giants are not competitive in this game, I'd like to look back at the tape, see if people are making some, financial decisions, we'd call it, on the field with some of the tackling and whatever. But I have a hard time believing professional athletes have quit altogether at this point in the season. My 2 cents on that. All right, keep it moving here. Before I do, reminder, everyone, 2 seconds, smash that like button down below. It does go a long way to help people find our content here on Forward Progress. And we're at 117 likes right now. That is less than a third of the people watching. So just take 2 seconds. Smash it down below. Before I get to the next game, good question. Would you be comfortable taking Commanders at Survivor? I don't like to answer Survivor questions at this point in the season because it depends on your pool. It depends on your league. What do other teams have left? But they're an 8.5 point favorite. They're a very viable Survivor option. I know a lot of the other big favorites, Miami, Dallas, San Fran, you probably have used those teams already. But yes, I mean, I would be comfortable. They're very viable as a Survivor option. Keep it moving here. Tennessee and Jacksonville. Another thing that people may have seen on this I'll call it the tortoise spreadsheet this week, was an edge that I had on the over in this game. From a market perspective, we're off the 7 to 6.5. I want to talk a lot about this game because there's something at play here, but market comes off to 7, yet the over still gets bet. It's kind of counterintuitive to what I'm going to talk about here. But yesterday, there was some slight movement towards Tennessee. And what was very interesting to me is that some sharp books circled the game out of nowhere in the afternoon. So for those that don't know, circling the game means reducing the limits on the game. That typically does not happen unless there's some sort of information at play. So quickly, doing a quick Twitter search, trying to figure out what's going on. Why are a couple of these books circled on the game? Then I start to get hit with some stuff. And there's a lot of stuff flying around about the health of Trevor Lawrence. Ever since Thursday Night Football against the Saints, he's been wearing a knee brace. He has not been looking right. He's been way less inclined to scramble. You've seen a lot of people bet his rushing totals under this week. There are rumors floating, and I must stress rumors. I've not confirmed anything. I'm not an injury expert, but there's rumors that Lawrence is dealing with an MCL injury. Now, that's out there. There are some videos out there, though, of reporters saying that the knee is getting better for Lawrence. He's almost off the brace. So there's conflicting information. But it is out there, and I don't know what to do. It would be big for this Jags offense if Zay Jones could play today. It's expected that he will be back. With Jamal Agnew on IR, they badly need another option there. Calvin Ridley's been one of the worst number ones in the league this season. There's not a lot of depth after Christian Kirk, so that could help a little bit. Jacksonville's also dealing with the absence of starting corner Tyson Campbell. That kind of offsets Tennessee being without Sean Murphy-Bunting in their secondary. Tennessee also injuries, Treylon Burks, Andre Dillard, their left tackle, although Andre Dillard's been like a turnstile in pass protection this season. But it makes the game sort of unbettable, in my opinion. I just don't really know what to do. My number in the game was like a minus 6.75-ish. So it's not like I would be doing anything anyways here, but it certainly has got me off the over of the game in terms of giving that out as a play today. All things equal, if Jacksonville was healthy, if I knew Lawrence was healthy, if this didn't happen yesterday, I'm probably on the stream this morning giving out the over as a play. Jacksonville's a zone-heavy team. Will Levis, very small sample, but he struggled badly against man coverage last week when the Bucs threw that at him, and he's been fine against zone, slightly above league average. So I think the opportunity is there. I do like the variance with Levis. I like the fact that he throws downfield. That's important for me, looking for explosive plays when you're betting a total. But right now, with the state of Trevor Lawrence, I don't know. I believe they did put him on the injury report with a knee injury as well. So it is out, like it's out there that he's dealing with. He has been wearing a brace. It's very public. And Jonathan does confirm Zay Jones is active. So that's kind of the handicap. Like, it basically is just like, yeah, I'm not going to bother handicapping it because there's just too many unknowns. Keep it moving along here. I'm just going to have a sip of coffee here. Keep it going. Bears and Lions. One-way stream of Bears money this week. Not like substantial moves through 8.5 and 8. Pinnacle now sitting at 7.5, juice towards the Bears. We saw a similar situation with the Lions, I think 3 weeks ago, Monday Night Football, when they were playing the Raiders. They opened up in like the 10-point range. It was just a flood of action on the Raiders in that game. Detroit ultimately won and covered. It was a sweat, but they dominated altogether. Chicago was the healthiest they've been all season. They did elevate a couple of linebackers off the practice squad. That leads me to believe that despite practicing on Friday, Tremaine Edmonds is probably out. I have not seen confirmation on that yet, but that's my expectation. Detroit, a fine injury report as well. They're still without their left guard, Jonah Jackson, as Connor said. That's pretty much the only notable injury one in this game. The thought of betting against Detroit scares the shit out of me. That's not to say that I wouldn't. In fact, my number on, it's a small lean Chicago. It's not going to be a bet, but the Lions have gone for it on 34% of their fourth downs this season. That's on pace to be the highest rate by any team this century via True Media stats. They go for it. That creates a lot of variance one way or another, but they have a propensity to blow some teams out, and it's because they do get aggressive with this play calling. The thing is, the Bears defense has kind of turned the corner a little bit, and we can point to the schedule, which is true. Because if you do look at the recent schedule, the one time they had a step up in class was the Chargers game. And I don't believe the Chargers even punted in that game. I think they just had like a lot of long methodical drives. But outside of that, it's been Carolina, it's been New Orleans, it's been Las Vegas. It hasn't been the toughest schedule, but they're generating pressure now with Montez Sweat. Their run defense has been very, very good. They play the second highest rate of cover 2 in the league, which has been the defense that Jared Goff has been horrible against this year. Goff has a negative 0.53 EPA per play against cover 2. That's 30th in the league. So I kind of get it. I can see it. Now, that's not to say that the Bears are going to shut down the Lions on the road. That's probably not going to happen. The Lions play very well at home. They put up a lot of points. But maybe the Bears defense is a little bit underrated at this point, just due to the amount of injuries they had in the secondary earlier. On the other side of things, Justin Fields returning from a long layoff. That's a relative unknown. Typically, I do like to fade quarterbacks in their first game back off of a long layoff. We tend to get a rust factor, but Justin Fields was almost ready to go last week on Thursday night. They decided to sit him a little bit more, had a full week and a bit of extra practice. This offense was very good when he got injured. His last couple of games before his injury, he was averaging almost 10 yards per attempt. Throwing the ball downfield. I'm not saying that they are going to just like pick up at that spot, but the Lions defense is very overrated and has been for a large majority of the year. So it's definitely a Bears or nothing. I don't put a ton of stock into like the Thanksgiving look ahead like a lot of people are doing today. But traditionally speaking, it is fair to say those teams playing before Thanksgiving have not performed well from an ATS perspective. So Bears or nothing, like the theme of the day, nothing. Raiders and Dolphins. One-way action all week. Just money pouring in on Miami at every single opportunity. Now up above 14 at some sports books, including Pinnacle. And this is where I talk about betting numbers and not teams. Because, well, let me start with the injuries first. The state of the left side of the Raiders O-line, that's in flux. Don't know about that yet. Colton Miller, their left tackle, has been dealing with a shoulder injury, missed last week. That's a significant impact and changes things a lot if he can play. Dylan Parham, questionable as well on the left side, not as big of a deal. Miami dealing with O-line issues. Isaiah Wynn's on IR. They're without their guards this week, Robert Jones and Robert Hunt. Can the Raiders take advantage of that? I'm not sure. Jerry Tillery, Bilal Nichols, that's a pretty weak defensive tackle combo. John Jenkins is there. He's a rotational player. He's been very good as a pass rusher this season, but I don't know that the Raiders can take advantage of this. But when I talk about betting numbers, not teams, subjectively, I see, like, in my head, I see the Dolphins smoking the Raiders. Dolphins are way better than the Raiders. Raiders coming off a couple of games that have probably made them look better than they are against weak teams, the Jets and the Giants. Now, new coaching staff since the Detroit game, I get it. Miami's murdered these bad teams. We've seen them kill Denver, the Giants, the Panthers, the Patriots. But I can't help but think this has gone a little bit too... Like, there's no chance in hell I'm going to lay the 14.5 with Miami. It's Raiders or nothing at this point now. And what's the case for the Raiders? The case for the Raiders is that they condense games. Look at how badly they got outplayed against Detroit on that Monday Night Football game. They got outgained by like almost 400 yards, and they still almost covered the spread because they condense games. What does Antonio Pierce want to do? He wants to run the ball aggressively. He makes it very well known. They've been successful running the ball under Antonio Pierce. They're getting a full yard more before contact in these last two games under Antonio Pierce. Josh Jacobs is rejuvenated. What's changed in that span? I mean, one of these games was the Jets' defensive front. What's changed? I don't know. But Antonio Pierce, Collinsworth mentioned this on the broadcast on Sunday Night Football last week. He's actually game planning the running game with Josh Jacobs, asking him to pick plays that he thinks he can excel at and stuff like that. Maybe that has some sort of impact. On top of that, why does Miami consistently blow these teams out? What's Miami doing? It's explosive plays. What do the Raiders do? They defend the explosive play. They're number 1 in the league in explosive pass play percentage. They will let you work down the field. This is exactly how they want to play defense. If you can go down the field on 15 plays and beat us, sure, go for it. But we're not going to give up the big pass. So to me, this is like, now we're just pushing the limits of the number of the game. I don't like the Raiders. I think they stink. I like Miami. But at some point, we got to draw the line. When you're betting in NFL, you got to be able to bet both sides of the game if the number reaches one or the other. And personally, I just think now we've gone a little bit too far. If you're holding the early Dolphins tickets, congratulations. I think you did really well for yourself. But now I think we've gone too far. News out of Green Bay, Rashawn Gary, Quay Walker, active, Jair Alexander out. That is probably, I will run this in real time here, but it's probably going to keep me off of anything in this game based on at the current market numbers. It will be close, but with Alexander's impact, it's likely going to keep me off altogether. Raiders using more zone blocking as well. Good point, James. Good point. Let's keep it moving along here. And again, apologies for the lack of plays, but there's nothing I could really do about that. Cowboys up to -11. Very small move off of the 10.5 at Pinnacle Market Making Sportsbook. Total is at 43. I make this number roughly 10.5. So it's a Carolina or nothing bet for me on this game, which is a nothing for the purposes of this stream. Dallas got a clean injury report. Carolina had some optimism that they were going to get J.C. Horn back, but he's going to sit one more game with the hamstring injury. C.J. Henderson, concussion. Remember, Jeremy Chin is also on IR. He's got that quad injury. So the Panthers are thin at corner here. I'm a Cowboys fan. I'm going to break this down impartially. I don't think anyone would disagree with what I'm about to say. All the evidence from this season shows us that Dallas is a million times better than Carolina. But you have all these other random things working in the Panthers' favor this week that are hard to ignore. Dak Prescott. I've talked about this before, right? When you're very familiar with your team and you watch your team play every single game and sometimes multiple times, you kind of pick up on things that work for your team. The way to not play Dak Prescott is to blitz him and to send man coverage and to play man coverage. That's how I would never play Dak Prescott. What I would typically do is rush 4, drop a bunch of people into coverage, rotate types of zones that I'm playing to try to confuse him, and he'll have some turnover-worthy plays that way. That's kind of the way that the Panthers play defense. They're a huge, heavy zone coverage team, 81% zone, third highest in the league. Now, that's not to say Dak can't beat zone. He can. He just doesn't do it at the rate that he beats man coverage. Carolina plays a lot of cover 3. It's the most in the league. Again, you look at Prescott's success rates against cover 3, 13th in the league. Still above average. And he's been above average pretty much against every defense. But the man coverage numbers are through the roof. Carolina's defense has been playing well, even with the injuries. You look at since they came back from the bye week. Yeah, some people might say, oh, of course they're playing well. You know, they got Tyson Bagent. They got, who else did they have? Was it Bagent? Oh, it's Gardner Minshew the week before. Those offenses aren't very good. They held the Houston Texans to 13 points. C.J. Stroud, who we're talking about as being in the MVP conversation now, they've played 4 home games this year. They haven't given up more than 20 points. They have a very good defensive coordinator, right? It's not the Panthers that need to score to cover margin. They just have to remain within the number. Now, it's certainly scary because their offense is brutal. I mean, brutal is an understatement. They've had 3 games since a bye week with less than 4 yards per play against bad defenses. If you look at the loss to the Bears last week, on 45.6% of their snaps, according to True Media, they had no gain or a loss. It's absurdly bad. But remember when I said there's these weird things working in Carolina's favor? Bryce Young has actually been very good against the limited amount of man coverage he's played this year. He's 5th in the league against man in terms of EPA per play. He's dead last against zone. And why has he been successful against man? A lot of it's been scrambling. But Dallas will play a lot of man. The opportunity is there. You got Frank Reich back to play calling duties. I don't even know if that means anything. It probably doesn't, but the opportunity is there. Number in the game for me is 10.5. I would only look at Carolina. It's honestly like a 10.3 or whatever, but it's scary. Maybe I'm just a pessimistic Cowboys fan nowadays where I'm kind of expecting them to fail in certain spots. The spidey senses are tingling a little bit with this game. I'll talk about that tonight when the Dallas Cowboys win this game 35-0. All right, keep it moving to the late window. I've talked a lot today. I feel it's important to talk a lot. I don't have a lot of plays today. I'm kind of just trying to talk through my thought process. Frank Reich is terrible. Horrible. Whatever adjective you want to use. Yeah. Okay, Tampa Bay and San Fran. So far in a lot of these games, I've made the case for a lot of the big underdogs. Typically speaking, that tends to be the way my numbers will go in the long run. This is one of the games where I agree with the line movement towards the favorite. I think this is settled in a fine spot at 13.5. San Fran bet up from 11.5, kind of threw all these quote unquote dead numbers, right? San Fran, relatively clean injury report. They're still without their guard, Aaron Banks. Not a big loss whatsoever. This is the healthiest San Fran's been in a while. Tampa Bay with a couple of questionables here. Keep your eye on them. Matt Filer at guard, Carlton Davis at corner. Neither's had a very good season dealing with injuries, but both have had pretty consistent, good careers. But the numbers for San Fran, when they have Trent Williams and Deebo Samuel on the field, which they had last week, are night and day. With Williams and Deebo, they average a full yard more per play. If you look at the running game alone, with one of Deebo or Trent Williams off the field, if at least one off the field, one or both, they average 3.5 yards per rush. When they're both on the field, it's 5.3 yards per rush. It is massive, the difference with these guys on the field. And that's just averages. If we want to look at explosive plays, basically double the percentage as well. I don't like the Bucs defense. Good game plan against Will Levis last week, but they play a high rate of zone. Purdy has killed zone. I think San Fran is going to put up points. I do. Can Tampa answer? I don't know, man. Baker is an enigma for me this year because he has this, and this is not the first time I'm going to talk about this. I've said this before, but he has this large sample of his career where you put this guy under pressure and all of a sudden he turns into a pumpkin. This year he's been a little bit better. He's made some throws. He's hung in the pocket. Maybe we're seeing a career revival out of him, but I'm fairly confident he's going to face pressure in this. They're still not great on early downs. Bottom 8 offense in the league in terms of EPA on early downs. That's going to be third and long, potentially some fourth downs against the San Fran defense. Get that pass rush going. with Chase Young. I think this number is fine. Honestly, if I had to pick anything at the current market number, San Fran is the favorite that I would want most. Keep it moving. We got 3 games in the late window. Second one is Rams and Seahawks. It's been one-way action towards the Rams. I think if you looked at the market numbers last week and the way that these teams were being priced, Seattle was in the -2.5 range. It's been a substantial switch. And honestly, I get it. Totally. Big one to monitor here is Tyler Lockett. Bad hammy. Expectation is that he's going to play. The only Ram in question for today's game, Kobe Durant, cornerback. Sean McVay said a couple days ago, this is the healthiest the team has been since the beginning of the season. He used the words without a doubt. He also said that Matt Stafford's going to wear a soft brace around his right thumb. He's been doing it in practice all week. Looks good. That's important. There's a little bit of uncertainty here with the Stafford situation. But he destroyed this Seattle defense in the first game of the season. I mean, it was a dominant performance to the point where I personally way overreacted in week 2, the week that Seattle beat Detroit, because I was like, Seattle might actually just be a garbage team this year. But he had whatever he wanted over the middle of the field. And that's been the Stafford MO this season. Middle of the field. Seahawks can't defend it. You have Cooper Kupp, you have Puka Nacua, recipe for disaster. Seattle, heavy zone team. What does Stafford do? Cook zone coverage. Seattle, heavy cover 3 team. What does Stafford do? Cooks cover 3. By far his best splits against any defense. Look at cover 3 this year. He has a 54.4% success rate against cover 3. That is massive when you consider the offensive injuries. It's hard to put a price on the Rams because we had the Brett Rippon start. Cooper Kupp was out for the first month of the season. They've played a tough schedule. Cowboys, Niners, Eagles, Bengals. Even Pittsburgh's defense, like with a very good pass rush. So I am very optimistic about the Rams offense. It's just a question of whether their defense can hold up because they also play a lot of zone coverage. Geno, dead last EPA per play in the league against man. He's 6th against zone. Now, he's gone up against Raheem Morris a couple of times, and it's been ugly. So maybe there's something there. Cleve TA pointed that out this week as well. Something that this Rams defense has done has slowed him down. But that's my only concern. I do make the Rams a very small favorite in the game. If I had to pick something, I'm going with the steam and taking the Rams. But ultimately just challenging to pull the trigger with the uncertainty baked into Stafford's thumb and the uncertainty baked into their defense. A lot of people were mentioning earlier, Bills are getting steamed. I'm very interested in talking about this game because the Bills take money on game day almost every single week. It happens extremely regularly. It happened against Denver on Monday Night Football last week. It happened against Cincinnati on Sunday Night Football. It happened against New England a while back. Giants game got bet up on Monday Night Football as well. Buffalo takes money. This is not just like pat on the back stuff. I'm just merely pointing some things out here. But I come on this stream almost every week and talk about how I believe the Bills are overrated in market. The market is just not catching up to how this team has deteriorated. This is me, been anti-Bills in my numbers for 5 straight weeks. And I bet the Jets last week, so I wasn't low on them. This is the first time in a while I've shown value on the Bills. Now, 7.5 to 8.5 today, not a huge substantial move, but it's game day money. It matters. I still think that that's a little bit short. Weather looks like it's fine. There was concerns about some wind. Not going to be there. It's well documented that the Jets O-line is in shambles. Dwayne Brown, he's been activated off IR, but he's not playing. Elijah Vera Tucker, Wes Schweitzer, Connor McGovern, Billy Turner. It's a mess of an O-line. Buffalo is as healthy as they've been in a while. We know they're not getting Matt Milano or Trey White back, but there are no significant secondary injuries this week. Josh Allen against the Jets. The issues are well documented. We saw it week 1 when Aaron Rodgers went down. Jets play 31% quarters defense, highest in the league. That's where Allen's had the least success this year, both success rate wise, EPA wise, against any type of D. To me, though, and maybe I'm insane to think that Josh Allen could potentially go games without turning the ball over. I know that there's people out there that just think the Bills' offense is broken. But statistically speaking, it is very much not broken. If we take the last 6 weeks in the NFL, arbitrary endpoint, sure. They have the number 1 success rate on offense in the league. They're getting killed because they are turning the ball over. Can that happen against the Jets? Yes. But I honestly believe we are going to see a more conservative game plan with the Bills. Because on the other side of the ball, you have Zach Wilson. I read this via True Media this week. Last week, he made his 30th career start. He's among 11 quarterbacks who have made their first 30 starts over the past 5 seasons. He's dead last in EPA per dropback, dead last in completion percentage, dead last yards per attempt, passer rating, touchdown interception ratio, TD passes, and dead last in off-target percentage, 15.6%. He's horrible. Now, is the offensive line being in shambles contributing to this? For sure. But they have 1 touchdown in their last 3 games. They've gone 36 straight drives without a touchdown. This is a game, in my opinion, where Buffalo can easily get home with 4 rushers. These are the games where their defenses have performed the best. And guys, the last 3 weeks, we're talking about the Raiders and the Chargers and the Giants. These are horrible defenses that he cannot score against. Horrible. Deplorable. Buffalo, in my opinion, gets a much more conservative game plan. They don't need to score a ton to cover this game. They just need to not make the big mistake. I think the coaching staff is learning that. I think that this number, for the first time in a long time, is short for Buffalo. Am I going out and chasing the game day steam and betting the 8.5? No. I'm not. I make this game pretty much right on the total, Harry. So nothing to do there. But yeah, I mean, maybe I'm going to be the idiot today, along with the game day Buffalo steam. But I think that this is a very good opportunity. The Jets offense has performed at a historically bad rate for 3 weeks. And as bad as the Bills offense is in turning the ball, we've seen the Jets defense force turnovers and their offense still can't score. Anyways, I've said my piece on this game. Sunday Night Football, last game I will talk about in full today. Well, I'll give a few thoughts on Monday night before I sign off. One-way action on Denver this week, up to -2.5, -112 at Penny. Total here at 42.5. Denver's the sharp side this week. I get it. I mean, it's crazy if you look at Denver's injury report now relative to 5-6 weeks ago. It's clean. It's a different team, plain and simple. But I want Denver in the situation we had last week, where you got to go and keep a game close. I don't want them when I need them to win, even by a field goal. There are so many scenarios where Denver's offense is just so inept that this could be a challenge. I think the number's fine, honestly. But the Vikings defense has a big advantage over this Denver offense. Vikings defense is playing really well. Really well. They've played bad offenses this year, and they've held them to nothing. Tampa Bay, Carolina, New Orleans, Green Bay. I guess the only one was Atlanta. Atlanta put up 26 points. How much? Like, 2 of those points were a safety by Josh Dobbs. The other one was a fumble in their own territory. Vikings defense is really good. Like, there's not a clear path to success here for Russ. On top of that, like, what are the Vikings? The Vikings have sent cover 0 11.6% of the time, which is hilarious to me because there's no one even in that ballpark. Russell Wilson, it cannot beat that anymore. I mean, he did last week on the final play of the game where he severely underthrew his receiver and got a DPI call, but he has sucked against that defense, and he takes a lot of sacks when he's under pressure nowadays as well. That's my big concern with this one. Josh Dobbs is not trash, in my opinion. He's overrated, and I totally agree with that, but definitely not trash. And they have a good coaching staff that is using him in a way that he should be used. Anyways, going to be watching that game live tonight while we're breaking down Pinnacle openers for next week at 8 p.m. Eastern time. Appreciate you, Murray, in the chat, giving us the actives and inactives today. Nothing a surprise there, except I did think Jair Alexander was going to let it go. Give it a go today. You don't let him roll out to the right. That's what the Saints tried last week, and he found a way to work back to the left side of the field and make throws downfield. Now, he still does like a lot of stuff that he gets away with. There's a few plays in the Saints game last week where, you know, he's no longer looking down the field. He's just like, I'll call them luck plays. But that's it. Sergio, appreciate you, brother. Come on, guys. Keep smashing the thumbs up down below. Let's get it to 200 at the very least. Last game. Monday Night Football. Eagles on the road at the Chiefs. Super Bowl rematch. KC minus 2.5, minus 118. Total's been bet down to 45.5. Some of that is weather related. It's supposed to rain a lot. Today, tomorrow, it's actually supposed to be like nonstop rain. By tomorrow night, maybe not. But field will be in bad conditions. I have to, like, I'm a preacher of people make fun of me. And when I say people, I'm going to Fezzik for giving out like numbers that they are good to. I'm quantifying my edge. I'm going to tell you what number I would bet something to. I said it this week. Can't go past. The cutoff is minus 118. It's literally right on the cutoff, right here, where I wouldn't play the game. 1 cent, but it makes all the difference in the world. If you're going to make games, you're going to price number. If you're going to price games, make numbers, you might as well. There's going to be a lot of back and forth opinions on this game. I believe that the injury to Dallas Goedert is very tough for the Eagles. I have long maintained that Goedert if I had to put together a most underrated players list in the league, he does get a lot of respect. I think he's actually better than the amount of respect that he gets. I think it'll have an impact on their offense overall. Also, Spagnuolo, very good big game defensive coordinator. They blitz at a high rate. Hurts has not been good against the blitz this year. Now loses a very reliable target over the middle of the field in Dallas Goedert. I expect Spagnuolo to dial it up tomorrow night. It's not like Mahomes just to win, Mahomes by like that's nice. And I honestly, it is nice. Just rooting for Mahomes to win a game. But it'll be impactful. I don't care as much about the records of the team without, because the Eagles are still going to beat a ton of teams without Dallas Goedert. Like Dallas Goedert being out for the Eagles doesn't drop them from, top 5 team in the league power rating wise to outside the top 10. That's not what I'm suggesting. They're still going to be a top 5 team. They're going to beat a lot of the teams below them. What I like to look at is the efficiency numbers of these teams with and without these people on the field. Devontae Smith got a lot more targets in those games. Since not many picks, how about building a super teaser? All right. I won't build a super teaser, but let's talk it through for those that don't know the teaser strategy stuff. Right? This one, Pittsburgh Cleveland's out to 2.5 now. Technically, I mean, this is a super low total. Pittsburgh, do I want to put Pittsburgh in a teaser? No. I like to avoid high like the total's low, but the variance on DTR is so wide that like we have no idea what he could be. I don't blame people at all for Pittsburgh teasers. I just don't love them. Commanders teasers make a ton of sense, as do Lions teasers, as do Bills teasers, and honestly, as do Vikings. It's not rocket science here, people. Tease through 3 and 7. Try to get games with low totals. It's not rocket science. I mean, I could get excited about doing a money line parlay, but I don't want to, I'm not going to bet this stuff myself right now. Throw San Fran in there at minus 770. Be the one team that loses that you think is the guaranteed winner. Bills minus 400, slightly valuable in a money line parlay. I don't know, guys. It's just not a great board for me right now. It's not a great board. And by the way, these numbers are all moving over the course of the week. Again, I don't want to it's not the holier than thou mentality, but just bet earlier in a lot of these games. Bet earlier in a lot of these games. All right. I think that's going to be it for me. Rams over 45.5 is intriguing. There's a few totals that are intriguing to me. The Packers under is intriguing to me. The Titans over, although I said my piece about Trevor Lawrence there and why I would avoid that. The 49ers Bucks over. This one is there. Denver under Sunday night. These are ones that are just very minimal edges. 0.2%, 0.4%. Typically I come off and I give a cutoff of 1% here. Did you have any market disagreements you can sum up quickly? Yes. Disagree I disagree with as strong of a move that we've seen on Miami so far. I think this got out a little bit too far in the game. That's kind of the big one, honestly. It's kind of really the big one. Just weren't a lot of good edges this week, in all honesty. And you know what? I guess I slightly disagree with the steam on the Washington Giants over as well. Slightly. Those would be the big ones. All right, people. Appreciate everyone in here. Reminder, back here tonight, 8 p.m. Eastern time. I got to try to catch a 40-minute nap right now before the game starts, or else I'm just going to be totally gassed and running on fumes tonight. So once more, smash that sub down below. Make sure you're subscribed here on Forward Progress. If you're in Canada, check out Pinnacle. Honestly, amazing sportsbook. I don't say that because they pay me to say that. I honestly say that because I'm very proud to promote a great sportsbook in Canada. Use code HAMMER if you are going to sign up. Hopefully you guys have more volume than I do today. For me, I have some big rooting interests, but not a whole lot. Not a whole lot. So hopefully you guys have some more rooting interests than I do. But I'll catch everyone back here tonight, 8 p.m. Eastern time. Myself, Clive Bixby, will recap the day. We'll pull up the odds for Week 12 as they get posted, including the Thanksgiving Day games, and we'll break them all down for you here on Forward Progress. Good luck with your bets today, unless you're opposite me, and I'll catch everyone back here tonight. Peace out, people.